Hello, everyone. Before we get started, we have to pay the bills real quick. So, I would like to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is your free all in one podcast application. With Anchor, you have creation tools built in to record and edit your episodes straight from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many other platforms. It even lets you monetize your podcast with no minimum listenership. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now. We use it, and so can you. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, and welcome to Going 19, episode 17. Today we discuss part 6 of 11/22/63, The Green Card Man. This is also the final episode of 11/22/63. I am Ed. With me are Kirsten and Amber. Let's start the show. Eleven 22/63. What chapter are we on? 6? The final chapter.
The final part.
I can't believe that's chapter 6.
Right? Well, not chapter 6, part 6.
Oh, okay.
It's like
That's what I was saying. It's definitely not chapter 6.
It's like chapter 800 or something. So.
The last part.
Jake is taken to the police station where they begin processing and interrogating him. Dr. Perry, no longer Kennedy's surgeon, looks at Jake's knee, thanks Jake and Sadie for being heroes, and moves on. Kennedy goes to Austin as planned originally, but he goes without Jackie this time. Jake is questioned by Hosty and Fritz, but turns the tone of the interrogation to accuse them of negligence and a failure on their part. The interrogation is interrupted by a call from JFK. Hosty lets Jake go, tells him about the tap in his room. Jake goes to his room, calls Deke, who says he got the briefcase and everything, and they have a good cry, even though he's not a crying man. Hosty visits Jake in his room, thinks Jake is lying, but can't prove it. It's basically what that whole conversation comes down to, so he gives him $1,000 and tells him to disappear. Jake writes a note that Hosty wanted. So it makes his way back to the rabbit hole via bus in Pittsburgh and Tamarack Motor Court. When he wakes up the next day, he finds out that a tornado has destroyed Mercedes Street and an earthquake in LA killed 7,000 people. The rabbit hole, the green card man tells him he is the Jim Love. When he goes back to the future, everything is for the worse. Harry tells Jake that they're basically living in the aftermath of a nuclear Armageddon. 4 Japanese islands are gone. George Amberson became the Kennedy conspiracy, and Jake then goes back to the rabbit hole into the past to reset everything. He talks to the Ochre Card Man, actually runs from the Ochre Card Man, and he decides that he's not going to try to fall in love with Sadie again because the consequences are just too much. So he goes back to the future, looks Sadie up, and has, I guess, one more dance with Sadie. The end. So, what do you guys think? First thoughts?
Especially when you summarize it like that, it just feels like a huge waste of time.
The first time I read it, that was my impression. Like, he did all that for nothing. Like, oops, never mind.
To me, the most interesting part was the confrontation with the green card, ogre card man.
Oh yeah, we got a lot to talk about that.
That was the most interesting part of the whole last portion of things. But I think he made the right decision in terms. I really thought it was going to end with him
Going back to the rabbit hole.
going back for Sadie, and I was like, oh, you're so, because he basically a couple of times says like, well, I would do it for, like, would I do all of this, like, sacrifice the world essentially to be with the love of my life? And he's like, well, my answer is yes. And I was like, are you really gonna destroy the entire world, including your future with Sadie.
We were talking about that. Like, what good is it if you don't have the world to live in?
Right. Yeah. That was like, really? But then, so I think he made the right decision in the end. I think he took a roundabout way to get there.
He finally saw the light for some reason.
Yeah, after all that.
Like, he finally decided that everything he did was a bad butterfly effect instead of picking and choosing which ones he was gonna listen to.
Mm-hmm.
He decided it was too risky to do anything. He's like, fuck it. Let me call her. Hey, you still alive? She still got cut in the face though. So Johnny's still attacked even without Jake. I thought was in
I kind of thought that was gonna happen too.
So here, when Harry talks to Jake, I got the Kennebec fruit is gone in the alternate future. The mill burned down, the green front was gutted, and it's now a hole. Nuclear bombs fell everywhere. Vietnam never happened. There's no civil rights movement. Instead, we have race riots. Martin Luther King killed by an FBI agent.
I was wondering like how he could have predicted that also, but I saw in his notes afterward, like he worked with someone who I guess has studied this extensively, or that's their career, and they're basically like able to help him make pretty educated guesses.
Yeah, he said he talked to several people about like worst case scenarios. And by the way, at the end of the afterword is where it says Bangor, Maine. I knew I read this. So the end of the book says Lovell and Sarasota, I think, and the end of the afterword says Bangor.
That makes sense.
A dozen cities burned. George Wallace was elected. I looked him up. He was an Alabama 4-term governor, and he was a segregationist. So that could only end badly. The earthquake started. And that's one of the things Harry tells him, I think. The earthquakes are just something that we live with now. They happen all the time.
Yep.
And the weird wet ripping in the air thing.
Yeah.
I think the whole, like, for lack of a better way to describe it, the whole leprosy thing was kind of weird. I mean, I guess it was a result of the nuclear
radiation.
Yeah.
But like,
I took it.
I think.
But like Harry didn't have any of that. It was only some people that I guess suffered from it. It's just weird.
Maybe proximity. I don't know. Maybe the more you're outside, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Because those were like wandering kids, so they're probably like roaming the streets. I feel like Harry probably wasn't outside very often.
There are also kids that were born in radiation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true too.
And I thought the one old lady had spots too.
She might have.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Let's see. George Wallace nuked Hanoi. So instead of Vietnam, we just blew it up. He was assassinated. Right. Humphrey was elected. India and Pakistan went to nuclear war. Paul McCartney was blinded. I was upset to hear that. I don't know why he called him out. Al Qaeda formed in the Mideast. Russia collapsed, which sounded very ominous, but he didn't really say much other than that. And so all their nukes went on the black market. Bill died at the convention, so Hillary was elected president.
Yep. She's doing an okay job.
Right. He wouldn't commit either way on that one. So
she can't do anything about the earthquakes, so I guess she's doing all right.
The one thing he does say, one of the last things I said, last thing I wrote down, Kennedy died in 1983. So you're telling me all this was for 18 more years. 20 more years. Wait, 63, yeah.
Okay.
So all this was for 20 more years. So Kennedy was still only like 64 when he died.
But I think for this time, that was kind of...
Not that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, yeah.
Right. My grandfather's 96. Although he's more of an exception, I guess, than the rule.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like...
I would say we definitely live longer now. I don't know if 64 is... I hope that's not the lifespan. It might have been.
No, we definitely...
Back in the 60s, they thought trans fat was good for you. They were telling everybody to eat all the butter they could. Okay. So, yeah, that was my first impression. Wait, this whole book is over 18 more years for Kennedy?
Well, I
do
mean,
that.
that's kind of what I guess all of us, but especially, I know that I've been thinking this the whole time is like, it's like, what do they say? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Like, you don't know what you're changing. You don't know what good you could be saving or causing. Like, it's just, why? It doesn't, no.
The good news is, like he did, if it doesn't work, well, just go right back through real quick.
Yeah.
The only one that'll be pissed off about that will be the multicolored card man.
Zach
Yeah,
Lang.
but he didn't know that until the very end after all that stuff.
So
He could have just as easily like walked through, kill Oswald, walked back, been like, well, that was a disaster. Let's not do that again.
they had to wait for Oswald or fly to Russia.
Yeah, but he could have killed him a lot sooner than he did.
Well,
He waited for years after he got back.
What's his name? Akiva Roth had other ideas.
Yeah, and he could have saved himself from all of that.
The past is obdurate. The past is obdurate because he was the virus. He's the Gimlet. So it was him the past was protecting against, which is, I don't know. I guess I kind of knew that the whole time. I never really thought about it until he said it.
I mean, Amber kind of sums that part up pretty well, even before we really knew that this Jim Law is kind of a monster, and it ends up in the end he's the monster.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, I was like, I knew it.
And there definitely was foreshadowing from the dream that he even references it, like, oh yeah, the little girl's dream was right, I'm the monster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he said there's a Gimlet in the back seat, right? Something like that.
So, yeah, and I found it interesting that he ran from the Gimlet, and then he basically, not the Gimlet, from the Ochre card man. And the guy stopped basically at the edge of his range. So he has a definite hard boundary that he can't go past.
I thought that was weird too.
So where does he come from? Who does he work for?
And why is there a boundary in the first place? And where's the boundary? Where's the radius?
So he's almost on loan. He can't go. I guess he's not allowed to go very far because he'll change.
The rabbit hole.
So what happens if the yellow card man changes something? Does he then create his own new string that he has to manage? Yeah, no wonder he started.
Well, and that's why he does the same thing every time.
Who?
Remember with Al especially, or at least a similar thing every time. He doesn't want to change anything.
With Al, he did. With Jake, it was.
He started getting pissed. He's like, "You're not supposed to be here."
It was different every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had 50 runs with Al, and then it's all Jake. He's like, "Oh no, we're not doing
He's
this."
He's like, "This is getting really out of hand now."
Yeah. Right.
So what? He just went crazy with all the time strings? Is that what happened?
That's
So what happens when the guy? I think that was one of my questions. Manages the strings, kills himself. That means nobody's managing anything.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Or are they replaced by a new person? Was he replaced by Zach?
I think, yeah, and we agreed that was the dumbest. I didn't want the yellow card man to have a name, and I didn't like his name when I did find it.
Yeah, it was weird.
Zach Lang.
No, that was the green card man. The other guy's name was Kyle.
Whatever.
I thought it was even weirder.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yellow card man was Kyle, right?
Yellow card man was Kyle. Green ochre card man was Zach Lang.
So they're definitely different people.
That's what I'm saying. My understanding was that when the yellow card man Kyle, when he killed himself, he was replaced by the green card man. And then as he was talking to Jake, that's why it started changing color, because Jake was screwing with the timelines again.
Okay.
Because when he goes back through and then he comes back again, that's when it starts turning ochre. And remember, he says the card turns, the darker, the more strings you have to follow, the more you have to keep straight.
The more strings, the darker the card.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
my understanding was that they get replaced.
The ochre was green, yellowish brown, right?
Yeah, it's between.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't green at all. That's what I thought. I thought it was greenish yellow, but we looked up ochre and it was yellowish brown. Does it say green and yellow in there?
Mm-hmm.
We looked up what color that was. Didn't mention green at all. So it was going from yellow to brown, which told me everything was going to shit.
Definitely was.
I like how he said he's got Shady's blood on his shirt, so he wanted to take it off, and then he never wanted to take it off again at the same time.
That's relatable.
That's Michelle has a story like that. The license plate she has is from her mom, who's now been 12, 13 years. She refuses to ever get a new license plate. She doesn't want another one. I told her to take it off, frame it, and put it on the wall, but she didn't want nothing to do with that. Oh yeah, it's that weird duality. I can relate to. I wrote down nervous laughter on 752, so now I have to look and see why I wrote that.
It's kind of funny that as the card changes, their whole appearance changes too.
Well, I think it's all connected, so it's like their sanity. So like, because the more strings there are, the more things you have to keep together, and then like I guess it causes pain too, is what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's what I'm saying. It's kind of interesting how the breakdown isn't just the card; it's like visible through their whole appearance.
Hey, 759 says no, but a Coca-Cola would be very nice. Is that a typo, or is that like what they called it back then?
I thought that's what they called it.
Because it's not. If you read it fast, you just see Coca-Cola, but that's not actually what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that too.
I have no idea.
Yeah. You know me. I'll see your typo.
I just assumed that that's what they called it back then.
752. I wrote nervous laughter. Okay. I don't know why I wrote that. So.
Okay.
I think my point was that I don't. It's something I see a lot of people do when they're nervous. They laugh at the end.
Mm-hmm.
754 is when. Oh, it questions it right in the book. Did the obdurate past work against things changed as well as the change agent? Not exactly sure what that means. So the change agent would be Jake.
Mm-hmm.
So if he changed, well, look, Oswald didn't kill Kennedy. So does it work against? How would it work against that? Really understand that. Amber, I like your bird soundtrack.
Oh, can you hear that?
Totally. Oh, we're leaving that in there.
I think it's just saying that, like, even if you make changes, the past is gonna make changes right back to undo those changes.
Yeah, and I mean, the past isn't nice about it, man.
Mm-mm.
That last run when they're trying to get to Oswald, and it just kept throwing shit at it. It was like Final Destination episode.
Yeah.
Like, on speed. Jacked up.
Maybe that should have been a clue.
Right? Something really doesn't want me to do this. Maybe I shouldn't do it.
It says on page 822 at the top. It says about the ochre color. Around the corner, leaning against it, was the green card man. Only Zach Lang's card was no longer green. It had turned a muddy ochre shade halfway between green and yellow.
Right, but we actually looked up the word, and that's not the definition of ochre.
Yeah, so that might be the way he took it, but he's wrong. What does he know? It does say muddy ochre shade, though. Maybe it's green, yellow, and brown.
That's why I took it the way that I did, that it was going from the green to the
make sense.
yellow.
That was the way I
Muddy
took
is
it
brown.
originally. Because
So
it
it was like in transition.
Right. Shit was getting bad. Not horrible, but it was starting.
Mm-hmm.
Once we go from yellow to orange to black, then we're in trouble. You have to close. How does it? He tells him he has to close the circle. How? What does that? What does he want him? How does he close the circle?
Walk.
By going back to 2011 without making any other changes.
That's why he's because at first he's all like, "You shouldn't be here. Get the fuck out." Now he's like, "Hey, good to see you, buddy. Come on in." Like, I guess now he wants him here to close the circle or originally.
Also a different person.
But when did he kill himself? When he came through the second time? Third time?
Third time.
Mm-hmm.
When he came through for Sadie?
Mm-hmm.
No, when he came through for Oswald.
Yeah, when he came through.
No, I'm
the
sorry.
whole 5
I
years.
mean, yeah. That's what I meant when I said Sadie. Not the. I didn't mean the. When he came there to live after Harry is when he killed himself.
Right.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially because they can't. He even says they can't do anything except for watch and try to warn. So after he tried to warn and he can already see what's happening, like he's like, I can't take this anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
Especially because he explained so much of it to him too, like the gravity.
Well, no, I meant Yellow Card Man.
Oh.
Kyle.
Yeah, he can't do anything about it, but he can just watch it all go to shit. That sounds horrible.
That's why he started drinking.
And that's why he killed himself.
Yeah, that too.
Why did he tell him the 38 was his? There's a bunch of stuff he said in that interview, and I was like, why did you say that so? Because you're just making yourself more suspicious.
Doesn't it? I mean, I don't know if they have. Do they have gun print or gun residue and fingerprints and stuff like that?
Well, fingerprints, yes. Ballistics and stuff, I'm not sure. I would have to guess maybe not, maybe a little early for that.
They would have registration for the gun, though, to know that it was his.
Maybe. I don't remember what my problem was. So sometimes I don't write the whole question down. I just go, his gun, well, I tell him about the 38, 755. And like, when I see it, I'll remember, of course. I can see. Oh. Ever popular conspiracy theory. No home should be without it.
I remember how he wanted him to close the circle. He wanted him to go back to 2011, come back through, and then go back to 2011 again to reset everything.
Yeah, that's what we said.
And then leave it go because they were going to be taking the trailer away. And he said once they take the trailer away, the bubble will pop and the rabbit hole won't be there anymore, so no one else can go through and screw stuff up. Mm-hmm. That's what he was talking about when he said close the circle. I forgot about the part where it gets rid of the rabbit hole.
I guess he just doesn't know. Like, I hate that rabbit hole. Where did it come from? And if they can get rid of it that easy, just by moving the trailer, why is it going to close?
That's what I was going to say. How does he know that?
He described them as bubbles, and he said that they're like fizzes coming up from time, and they're like, I guess what Ed was saying before, they're really delicate, so they have the ability to like pop if
But it doesn't seem like it should be tethered to the physical world, because it's like once they take away the diner, then it will pop, and it's like, but why? It's not physically there.
They weren't even. The diner was closing down, but the building wasn't leaving, was it? The building was still going to be there, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought you said they were
going to put a mall or something.
Yeah.
The building was a trailer. It was like a movable trailer. So because Al died, they were gonna, and his lease was up, they were gonna move disrupt the whole trailer and build something else in its place.
But again, that doesn't make sense to me. Why the bubble is fragile in that way? It seems very arbitrary.
I guess the bubble's a good analogy because it's, floats for a little bit and then disappears. So
But it shouldn't be related to construction going on top of it. I know a real bubble would, but if that were the case, if it had the same rules as a real bubble, it really would have popped a long time ago. Anytime anyone stepped through it.
What happens if it pops? I guess you're fucked when you're in the past.
Oh.
I guess you're stuck in
Yeah,
the
I
past.
would say you're screwed.
Well, there have been missing persons before.
Right. We are going to Derry in a minute. Deke got briefcase, so whatever the hell they were supposed to do, they did. I guess they were supposed to call Deke when they got the.
Yeah, give him the stuff in the car.
I don't think he ever actually told us what was in the note, did he?
I imagine it just said, make sure you like this stuff. I don't know. You get this stuff to Deke Simmons and it's very valuable or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but.
In both versions of time, when he goes and reads about Sadie's attack after he resets everything back to normal, it mentions again that Deke overpowered Clayton. I'm like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
in every version of reality, this old man's beating this guy up. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
buying it.
saw that too, and I was like, I wonder what really happened, because obviously what happened when Jake was there was not what was reported. So I'm wondering what really happened, because when he wasn't there, it was Ellen and Steve.
Yeah, Ellen was still there, and it was different too.
That's what I'm saying. That's what was reported. But what was reported when Jake was involved was that Jake wasn't even there. So
No, I did say that. Wait. Yeah, because I remember writing down why you even say Jake was there. Wait.
oh yeah, you might be right. But it did say that he overpowered.
Yeah. Jake, it was like George showed up after Deke overpowered him or something. They said like that.
Yeah, you're right. But my point is that the way they reported it the first time was not actually what happened. So my thought process was what they reported the second time probably wasn't what actually happened either. So
I think that's a good guess. I am curious, like, what happened. Because that was how this whole thing started. Is that I don't think Deke is the one that overpowered him.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
who
now
would it have been? Man, Mike and Mike Coleslaw was saying hi. Well, he wouldn't even have been doing that without Jake, though, because he would have just been a football player. I did see that a tornado, or maybe Stephen King wrote that in the afterward. A tornado actually did destroy Oswald's house on Mercedes Street. So he didn't make that part up. What 790? I wrote. I'm not ready for that. So,
I
right?
think it's funny that he thinks his name is actually Jim Law.
I was the Jim Law.
Jim Law, over here. Jim Law. He's like, my name's not Jim Law, it's Jake.
Right?
Why do you keep calling? He's like, oh, okay. Hi, Jake.
Jake Jim Law. Call him JJ. So his plan originally is to go back to the rabbit hole, go meet Sadie, go fall in love with her again, and live happily ever after. I just say bullshit. There's no way in hell that could ever happen.
Yeah, I agree.
It would feel, I guess, there's nothing in real life to compare it to, but trying to maybe like 50 first dates.
Right.
I think you said that, Amber, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a scene or a season in Vampire Diaries where something like that happens. Like the two main characters fall in love, and the one, he gets all of his memories wiped, or she gets all of her memories wiped completely. And so, like, he's still in love with her, but she has no idea who he is. And so he's like trying to make them fall in love again without making it like, because he knows how he feels, but she doesn't know anything. So it's like, how do you do that without manipulating the situation?
Well, that's what I said in one of the previous parts, that I was like, I feel like his plan to go back and reset stuff isn't going to work, because he's going to be in love with her, but she's going to have no idea about what happened before. Like, the dynamic's not going to be the same.
Right.
And I feel like he's just going to come off desperate.
I agree.
Which is a turn on for most women, because it's like, ew, why are you like...
Yeah, who's to say she's going to have the same reaction? I don't know. It's such a unique set of circumstances to make that happen. Trying to duplicate it just seems
crazy.
Phony, first of all,
Right.
and it's just fraught with perils.
Right.
It's my new word.
Like,
Fraught or peril?
Fraught. I think fraught. Right?
I just like the phrase in general. Fraught with peril.
I don't think I've ever used that word in any other context other than peril. If it's fraught, it's got to be peril.
With happiness.
Right? That doesn't just... Look, I wrote down, Jake sees signs everywhere, but maybe he should think more of the signs as omens instead of signs.
Oh, yeah.
We
We were talking about that when we were reading it.
Yeah. We did a lot of reading on the doc.
Yeah, he says there are a few. Think of a glass of ginger ale that's been left out and forgotten. After 2 or 3 days, almost all the carbonation is gone, but there are still a few bubbles left.
No, I was reading that part when you were talking about it. It still doesn't make sense to me though. Sorry, not to cut you off, but I know what you're talking about. I was just there.
What if Jake got to the Tamarack, took his nap, woke up, and then...
What if it was all a dream?
Well,
That'd be a wild thing.
he went through that with the memory loss. Like, what if I was just a managing that I was
Yeah.
in the future? Like, what if Kennedy was dead when he woke up? Died in a car accident 3 days later. That's what Final Destination would have done.
Does it make a difference? Because either way, what happened wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, what do you do at that point?
You reset it.
Yeah.
And that's what he had to do anyway. That's my point. Does it matter if he dies 3 days later or never or 18 years later? No.
Well, a little bit. It depends. I mean...
Why? The outcome was the same.
Yeah, but he would have affected many other lives in 18 years than he would have in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and made it a lot worse, apparently.
On that string, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance. That guy's got a lot of strings in his hand.
I love how they're like human. That's Lang from Seattle originally.
Yeah.
Like, what? You're just like a regular person. How did you get selected for this job?
And who's the boss?
Yeah.
I hate that he introduces all this information without explaining it more. Like,
yeah.
That's what he thought of at the time.
What if Jake would have been like, I'd like to speak with you, man?
I need a book on the yellow card, man. And it's
please. Oh my gosh, that would be so interesting if he did a spinoff, like following the yellow card or Kyle and Zach and like what their lives were and how they got selected. Stephen King, if you're listening to this, please write a book about the yellow card men and the green card men and the bureau that they work for.
The strange and confusing tale of Zach and Kyle Lang.
Well, I heard he's looking for ideas.
How do you
usually running out?
Because he would have said, it's my brother.
In my string, they're brothers.
In my string.
Do you guys know about 6/1999?
Oh yeah. I said that to you.
Did you? Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that was. Oh yeah, we talked about that.
You were like, was that the date? And I was like, yeah.
6/1999. In the book is when the Japanese reactor melted down.
Vermont.
Oh yeah, the free something in Vermont.
When they joined Canada.
So I thought that was funny. Maine joined.
Yeah. Canada. So he's like, we voted on it and we joined Canada. Like, wait, what? We just seceded. It's fine.
You know, having recently returned as a former Maine vacation. Yeah, I don't think they care what country they're in.
Yeah.
That
I would
doesn't really
agree.
affect them one way or the other. They're like, oh, okay.
But
It's
I'm
still gonna be
saying,
Maine.
why does the rest of the United States just be like, oh, Maine's part of Canada now, okay.
Right. Texas is probably its own country too at this point.
Yeah, like
Well, he
they're
said-
whatever. Like,
Yeah.
the whole world's going to shit anyways, who cares?
Like we voted, and we're like Canada now.
Not
Yeah.
only that, he said that Clinton said good riddance.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Damn, tell me how you really feel. At 6/19/99 in real life is the day Stephen King got hit by the van.
What man?
He was in a horrible car accident. Like
Oh.
Almost
They-
quit writing.
almost died, much less quit
Well,
writing.
that's fair.
And I'm like focusing on the wrong details there. She's like, he almost quit writing. I was like, well, he did almost die, so.
He actually did quit writing. He said he was done. There was a big thing on time, but then he thankfully had nothing else to do, so he kept writing.
Probably couldn't quiet the voice in his head.
Yeah. Just because you're hurt doesn't mean that shut up. And a matter of fact, it was when he was in the hospital. I think he was in a coma or just recovering. And Tabby was going through all his stuff in his library in the house. He was like, "Oh my God, one day she's gonna have to do this, and I'm actually gonna be dead. What's that gonna be like?" Then he said, "Well, what if there was a crazy fan who wanted all the stuff that I didn't publish and was stalking her?" And then he wrote Lissy's story.
Yeah.
So the accident produced a book all by itself. Just, that's the way his mind works. So yeah, 6/19, and I think that's why we have both 19 and 99, Amber. I
Yeah.
think nothing happens by coincidence.
Right. Well, that's when it
Sorry.
started showing up, I think, also.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Like,
Well,
when did that?
And definitely after, because he wrote it. Now it might be in some of the earlier ones on the rewrites, but 5, 6, and 7 is when things started really going 19. But I think when he rewrote, he like retroactively worked some of them in.
Yeah.
Hanoi is bombed the same day as Nagasaki. I guess that's symmetry, synchronicity. What's the word he used? Harmonizing.
Anything else like the cause of harmony?
No, but you're causing a watery ripping sound. Yeah, that would terrify me. That seems like one of them.
Yeah.
Them proverbial holes in the fabric of existence type situation.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like that's, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what ended up stopping him in the end from doing the whole Sadie thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's kind of
That and the constant unexplained earthquakes
question. Yeah.
that are just a part of life now.
Kind of question.
So you're never ever gonna feel safe under any circumstance.
But at the same time, like, what are you gonna do? It could end any day, so just live your life.
What are you gonna do? What does the condition of the green card man mean? It means Jake's fucking shit up by going back, right? All right.
I feel like that's a common theme. Jake's just fucking everything up.
I wrote, maybe the harmonies are the real danger. Because if the past is harmonizing, cause of problems making those harmonies.
The strings are getting crossed, is what that means.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to go there. We could, like, it's a time travel book, but it really doesn't have much to do with time travel. They just, every 5 or 6 years, you went through the rabbit hole and blah, blah,
Kind of
blah.
right, actually. It doesn't.
I need some science fiction, fantasy, time travel thing going on.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the reason why the ochre card man deteriorates so much too is because things are not, even though Jake's back in the present, they're not reset again until he goes back to the past and back. So that from when he first meets him as the green card man to when he comes back, he even says it was 2 minutes or an hour for me, but who knows how long it was for him while he's trying to keep the even worse world together.
That was interesting to me too.
So his time is not rabbit hole time.
Well, he even
Not.
asked asked when he says he's originally from Seattle, he's like, Seattle when? Like,
yeah, he doesn't.
when are you from?
He
Like,
doesn't tell
are
him that.
Seattle
See, that's what I'm talking
2011,
about. It's-
Seattle 2050, or
They ask all these questions. You're like, oh, I want to know the answer to that, and then the character doesn't actually answer it. They just kind of deflect it, and he moves on. Like, wait,
circumvent this question.
yeah, like, wait a minute, get back there. I want to know the answer to that.
That's what I meant. Like, Stephen King doesn't really do that a whole lot, or he like introduces something interesting and then doesn't explain it, unless it's like The Dome or it's like The Point or whatever. But so I didn't like that. I'm like, don't ask these questions for us and then not answer them.
He does that all the time.
Not with main characters though. Like, I know that there are a lot of unknowns, but it's like not to the point where, I don't know, like what do you mean when you say he does it all the time?
Doesn't answer the question.
I know, are you thinking of an example? I don't mean that there are unanswered questions. I mean specifically there's a pretty important main character that does some pretty weird stuff, and then just doesn't explain it, but also conveys that you should be interested in it by asking the questions and then moves past it. Like, I can't think of a lot of times where he does that for a character. For a plot point or a setting or something that happens to them, sure. You're not going to know where that comes from or why it's happening.
Maybe. I don't want to. I am sure there's examples, but I couldn't tell you one right now. So I'll let you know when I come across it. Just characters not explaining what's happening.
You're saying out of the other books.
Yeah.
Right.
Amber says it's usually setting, like it's not just straight up people ignoring questions. Something like that.
Yeah, basically. Like, I'm not gonna say always, but most of the time when there are unknowns in Stephen King stories, it's because they don't know themselves, or it doesn't matter. Like, you don't get these, oh, like, who are you and where did you come from and why do you do this, and then he'll tell you, oh, I'm from Seattle, but then not explain anything more like that.
Maybe he can't say it. That's what I was thinking when I was reading it. Like, maybe that's part of the organization. Like, they're not allowed.
The other thing is, he probably didn't really care at that moment. He's like, we got to get back to saving the universe.
True. He's like, there's more important things than when I'm from.
There's some neat stuff in the afterword too, actually. Like he said, we were talking about this. It's true that Lee hated and resented those middle-class burghers who had turned their back on Mother Russia. So all those expats were not. They were Russian, but they weren't supporting Russia anymore. Which I think we.
Well, that's why they're in America,
right? Well, capitalism's great if you have money.
Right.
Silent Mike was a real person who donated his name. Silent Mike McAcker.
Yeah, I like that.
He donated his name.
He said, "Hey, can I use your name?" And he said, "Hell yeah, you're Stephen King."
I was gonna say, who wouldn't say that?
Right. You can. Yeah. Can you make me the main character?
Mm-hmm.
They're all main characters.
No, I'll just tell Michelle about that. We went to the main. We didn't go to the main Hannaford. They were like, "Hey, they're all main Hannafords." We didn't go to the primary supermarket, but we did go to the main supermarket because we were in Maine.
Oh my gosh.
I guess she had to be there. He doesn't get it.
It's a main thing.
He thinks it's a dad joke. All right, we might just call this one an hour and move on to it.
Yeah, I mean, my
reading next.
Officially, yes. I bought the books. You're reading it.
If I wasn't in the podcast,
No, he had mentioned reading a different book.
Oh, the Billy Summers, the new book's coming out.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I don't know. I kind of want to get it out of the way so you can catch up at least a little bit. Maybe we'll circle back to. I'm gonna probably read that on the side and see what I think of it.
No, you can't read every book before we read it.
Why does it matter?
Because then he knows all of the
Because you,
droppings and such. So the conversation, I feel like, is different.
because you three different perspectives.
Mm.
There are also things he forgets all the time. So
Right. Yeah, especially when I'm around Heather. My God. That's a conversation for something that's not being recorded.
Yeah, that's a main way of life.
Main life hashtag. They don't have hashtag to me. All right. So I got some. So what do you guys think of the book? What's your overall?
Well, you know how I feel, but I'll say it again for the podcast. It's a good story. It's a good read. Having read other Stephen King things, it's just not my favorite King book. I will say also I could be biased because I'm not a big history fan, and especially not when it comes to JFK. So this whole time I've just kind of been like, well, who cares? Why is he doing this? Like, not like who cares about the book, but about JFK. I just feel like it's a waste of time, and in the end, it ended up being a waste of time. So I kind of feel like I'm like, at least I was right, Stephen King. But
Right. I just wasted all this time reading this stupid book and nothing happened, technically.
But it's definitely a good read. Like, it's not a bad book at all.
I think it's definitely off the beaten path for him. But then again, it isn't, because he goes right into his small town comfort zone. And he makes up a whole little small town and has them doing stuff for 4 years. But it's
sorry, it's the small town. Like, I don't know if it's because Jake is so misplaced. Like, he's like got split personalities almost the whole time, and he's from 2 different time zones. But it doesn't feel the same as the other small town stuff that Stephen King has written. Like, I just don't buy it as much. I didn't buy into the love story. Like, I didn't really care as much. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't as impressed.
I'm very interested to read it because while I liked the book, I think it's twofold for me. I agree with Amber. It was a decent story. I, unlike Amber, actually really like historical fiction. I really enjoy historical fiction. I'm not huge on American history. I like ancient history more. But I do.
Do you watch Ancient Aliens?
I don't.
It's history.
Not science fiction.
Yeah, history, not her story.
But anyway, so I really do like historical fiction, so I feel like this is probably more up my alley than Amber's. I did enjoy it cover to cover. Like, I would definitely have read it on my own. I would not read it again. I agree with Amber in that regard. I think she had mentioned that in one of the previous podcasts. I would not reread, more likely than not. I think the other part of it for me was that this was extraordinarily slow paced for how quickly I typically read.
That's all of us.
I read a book at least one book between each part.
I've never read a book this slow.
So I think that was a struggle for me. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I could have read it straight through, but it felt so dragged out. That I think that kind of.
I think we're going to pick up the pace a little more this time.
Yeah, and I'm just saying for this particular book, because it's already so long, and it's like I couldn't really get as invested in the story because I had to break each time to kind of keep myself on pace with where we were at. So I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more for, anyone else listening to this podcast, that you're just reading it on your own cover to cover. I think it would be more enjoyable to read in that way, versus kind of reading and stopping and reading and stopping and reading and stopping. Because it just felt like it dragged on.
And that's any book. I don't put a book down once I get going.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like, and Amber, maybe you can comment on this, because Ed, since you had previously read it, I feel like you're maybe a little bit biased because it was a reread for you. But Amber, I think you said this was the first time you read the book as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think that I would have enjoyed it more if I would have just read it fluidly versus I think it almost made it worse. Like the parts where you feel like they were a little dragged out and he didn't need to go into as much detail, or you weren't really interested in what was going on. It almost dragged out more for me because of how we broke up the book so much too.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was like a cover to cover read on my own terms.
The first time I read it, that's what it was for me. I loved the shit out of it. Every page, like Under the Dome and it and all the other ones, I just kind of sat down and did nothing else until it was over.
Exactly. You can get more invested in the story that way.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm the right... Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
I think I'm the right age to it. I didn't live through Kennedy, but all my parents' generation did, so I heard about it a lot. So I knew some of that, and I knew about all the conspiracy theories. In fact, I have a JFK conspiracy theory show taped on Xfinity, so we can watch it one day.
Yeah, see, that's probably a big part of it too. Is it's definitely written for his generation, or like around that generation. And it's not something that I really ever got into or cared about. And in fact, the parts about JFK were the most boring to me.
Yeah, like your generation's and mine, I guess, is 9/11, 9/11.
It's not the same. I wouldn't stop it from happening. Not to mention because our government... Sorry.
Oh, geez. Talk about conspiracy theories. We're gonna get our podcast.
Well, no,
our podcast is gonna go off the rails here.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe to say they could have stopped it is wrong, but they were alerted hours before it happened. Is what.
Failure of intelligence.
Yeah.
So.
But my point was, I don't feel strongly about 9/11 in that sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't go back in time and stop it from happening.
Well, there's some conspiracy theories for 9/11, but there's not the level that there was with Kennedy.
Oh, definitely not.
Like, it was all over the place. So, I mean, between the Kennedy, like, I actually enjoyed the Kennedy stuff because, like, I'm a history buff too, so it's kind of I felt like I was learning stuff I didn't know about.
That's why I like historical fiction, because it's intertwined. It makes like history more interesting for me, because for me to sit down and read a history book, they're always very dry for me. So to intermingle like a love story or something else, like that's interesting for me and can keep my attention a little bit better than a strictly non-fiction report of history. So but I've always wanted to know more about JFK and the Kennedys. Like I thought about getting like a biography or some type of book about it. I never have yet. So that part didn't bother me as much as I think it did with you, Amber. But I am, again, like I just, the way that everybody hypes Stephen King up, I guess I expected a little bit more. So I'm kind of excited to see what's in store for like one of his main books, like It or The Shining or one of those.
Yeah, I don't know how to speed that up for the podcast. I think we're just gonna have to.
We have to read longer sections.
Yes, that we can do. I was just looking at the book earlier. It's we're talking way too much about it right now. But
well, I was just saying like my review basically of this book.
Okay.
Kind of in terms, like I'm excited to see what else comes next with Stephen King's other books that we read, because this I know is slightly not like from what I understand, because it doesn't have any sort of like horror-y aspect to it, whereas a lot of his other books do, that people really seem to enjoy.
This is your second Stephen King book, and you haven't read a horror one yet?
Third. Dolores Claiborne, different seasons.
Different seasons had some horror. Did you finish the Breathing Method?
Yeah, that was definitely more horror-y. I enjoyed that one, I think, more than, and I liked Apt Pupil.
Yeah.
I did like Shawshank Redemption.
I think you're really gonna like It then.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I said I think you're really gonna like It if you like those two, especially like if you like those
That's
more.
What I'm saying. I'm kind of excited to get into what I kind of view as the meat and potatoes of Stephen King, which is like It and The Shining and some of these other ones that are more in that horror domain.
Yeah, and like a book like it, his books are page turners. I don't want to do anything else. So I mean, we're gonna read more in each section, but it's still hard to do for me. This is the first book I've read in 3 months. That it took 3 months to read. So.
I just don't normally read books in pieces.
Yeah, and I like 11. That if it's not in my top 5, it's close to it.
Really?
I found it entertaining as hell.
This
And
may
not
be
so much not so much the author, the Oswald stuff. Even though that I didn't get, like, Amber got bored with Oswald. I didn't get bored. I was actually a little fascinated by that. And then just the whole story with Jake and Sadie and all that, I was like, you know, those sections.
Liked all of it, and that's what I'm saying. I think if I was, for review purposes, I think that I would be able to rate it higher if I had read it straight through.
Probably.
So for someone else, like if anyone else was listening to this podcast and was like, oh, like I don't know if I want to read it because of, you know, the reviews that it got, what I'm saying for someone in those circumstances is that they're probably going to enjoy it a lot more because they can sit down and read it cover to cover and get really invested in the story on the side of, like, the love story and the story on the side of Oswald and time travel and all of those things, those intricate things that he has going on in the book.
I can say, as a moderate Stephen King reader, it's definitely one of my least favorite.
Yeah.
And Ed is saying the opposite. So I
know.
guess it's up to you, listeners.
I mean, I was entertained. Like, and I was thinking about, like, you know, he's even, the one chapter is just about them putting on the school play. And I was fucking thoroughly entertained the whole time. I don't know why.
No.
Like, it wasn't like
I'm
anything.
bored.
exciting.
I don't know what it is about this story. I didn't care about any of the characters. I was like, get on with it. I just want to know what happens to the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I feel like Amber wasn't very invested in this one.
And it's not the case because I freaking loved Wizard and Glass. I fell in love with that love story. Like, just
With what?
Dark Tower.
Mm.
It was an odd one to start on, but it was just the way that worked out.
Well, I'm glad to have read it for sure.
Well, that's why we're doing it now.
Right, going right back to the wheelhouse.
Yep.
How does this book compare to other books that you've read by him? I guess we just did that. Sometimes it goes past an hour, sometimes it doesn't. It's really weird. We just hit an hour. Do you think Stephen King was a teacher before he became a writer? Do you think this influenced his character of Jake? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Always. All his characters are teachers or authors.
I mean, write what you know, right? Yeah, and Jake's, in the beginning, I was talking about that. The mind-numbing task of grading papers or something.
I was going to say, we definitely touched on that throughout the podcast.
Yeah, you can tell Stephen King didn't like teaching.
I thought, did you read the conversation with Stephen King at the end? Oh, wait, you don't have one, do you, Dad?
No. Oh, actually, let me see your book.
Mine?
Yeah, I want to see the stuff at the end. Michelle needs that too, because she wants the rest. Mine didn't have that.
Really?
No.
You have too specific of mine.
I think mine's the first edition.
I can't remember where. Maybe it was in the afterword. At some point, he talked about dancing. I think it was in the afterword.
I did read this in a different context. Did you guys both read it?
I did, yeah.
Got anything to say? About
I
Stephen
did
King?
not read that.
I was going to say he mentions the fact that he mentions dancing a lot, but now I can't find it. I can't remember if that was in the afterword or if that was in this part.
When I got the news, I was in a hearse. Oh, see? Oh, look. Remember I told you I went to school in a hearse?
Yeah, you told me. Yeah, it does say converted or something like that.
A little town, and there was no bus service to the high school
Club
where we were.
together. Converted hearse, yeah.
All right, so of course Stephen King went to school in a hearse. That's called harmony.
God, I couldn't imagine sitting on a novel for 40 years.
It's not like he didn't do anything.
I mean, that's kind of worse. Like, how does he have so much in his head?
Under the Dome was the same way. He wanted to write it, but it was too big for him at the time. He wasn't ready. I find it fascinating that he says, I know I wasn't ready, but he also knows that he will be ready if he just keeps trying.
Oh.
It's like there's never doubt that he couldn't do it. He just can't do it yet.
I mean, at this point, I wouldn't doubt anything that he thinks he can do.
If it involves letters, then he can do it.
I did find the part I was talking about. It's the last question where he says, when researching the music of the day, do you listen to the songs as you write? So he says, one of the epigrams for 1122 is dancing is life. And dancing is something that has always interested me, which I found something interesting because I never knew or realized that from reading any of his books before. But it was very apparent in this one.
Dancing is interesting. Does that mean he dances or he just likes the idea of dancing?
I get the sense he probably either thinks he doesn't or maybe doesn't have rhythm. So he's fascinated by it, but it's something he can't do for once.
Maybe he can't do it anymore.
That's true too. Yeah.
The guy on the tour said he was, what do you say, he was put together with like sticks and glue?
Yeah.
Like the reason he kept it accident, he had some metal and stuff, and he said he moved to Florida because the main winters there's ice everywhere, and if he falls, he's done. He slips on ice, so that's why he has the Florida house.
He's like made of glass.
Yeah, he might have said that. I kind of feel like he was famous enough. The House of Florida was coming either way.
Yeah.
I think I'm good on that. Anybody got anything?
I don't think so. It was, like I said, it's definitely a good read. I'm excited to read.
Good way to. So, what do you think about Billy Summers? Skip over that for now.
I have no preference, honestly.
The new book. Maybe we'll put that. I don't know. We have so much to read. I don't know where I can insert it. It doesn't come out till August 3rd. What's 2 weeks? What's today? 3rd?
25th.
So that's almost 2 weeks from now, anyway. So what's our next weekend? 7th or something? It is. That's Bryce's party.
Yeah.
So we'll do the 8th. Ever?
Is that Sunday?
Thunder?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Sunday?
Yes.
Yeah, that should work.
Sunday the 8th, we'll call it noon. 1 to 161. Part 1, basically.
Part 1.
Yeah. All right. End of 11/22/63. See ya.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right. I'll see you in 2 weeks when we go back to Derry for real this time. Can't wait. All right. See you ever.
All right. Bye.
Bye.